but something that affects all of us. And I think especially for, in fact, I'm not sure if it's the fact whether women lose muscle mass quicker than men. That may be something we can talk about. But yes, so today we're going to be talking about muscle mass, how important it is the older we get to really pay attention to it, and why, if we retain it, it leads to a healthier, and I say happy life. But first of all, Claire, it'd be great if we could just hear a little bit of background from you. I know that you're a celebrity because I know you're on the television quite a bit. But I'm very keen to hear about your bikini days.
Oh. So yes, I'm a registered nutritionist. I have about over 20 years experience in nutrition, working in various different areas. I work a lot for the food industry and the parts of the supplement industry, advising on sort of nutritional balance, claims, marketing, communications, making sure that food brands are being responsible in the products that they sell to consumers and the claims that they're making sure that they're legal and not misleading. But like you say, I do quite a bit of media work as well. So I've been on various news programs, BBC Breakfast, Sky News, Channel 5 News, and then Save Money Good Food, Food Unwrapped. I recorded for a Netflix documentary on vegan diets, just like literally the day before the first lockdown. So I think they're probably struggling to finish the filming off, but hopefully that will be coming to screens near you soon. But yeah, I'm very keen on active nutrition, particularly for the over 40s, being in that age bracket myself. And so training and eating a balanced diet to help sort of fuel activity is something that I'm really keen on. And I think very much want to stress that I'm doing this for health and not appearance. Because you mentioned the bikini bodybuilding, and this is something I did a few years ago, probably going back 10 years now. I was very much into my bodybuilding and weight training to look a certain way and to be strong, but it was definitely very sort of driven by the aesthetics, and culminated in me standing on a stage in Hayes in West London, the most illustrious of places, the Beck Theatre, wearing a bikini and some very, very interesting Perspex heels, and basically posing with a view to winning a trophy. And I came third. And but I was told, so I'll just to put it in context, I weighed about 52 kilos, which is just under 8 stone. And I was told that I was fuller figured, that I was loose, that my skin and my body was loose, but I was in proportion.
Yeah.
And I was told I wasn't glamorous enough, that my eyelashes weren't long enough, that I wasn't brown enough. And I stood there and went, this really isn't what I signed up for. I wanted to do this just to sort of take something up that was health promoting. And actually I came out thinking that my body was defective in some way. And so I thought, you know, I'm not getting involved in this anymore. I like weight training. I like exercising. I like keeping my body active and moving my body in a way that is healthy for me. This isn't healthy for me because I'm training. At that point, I was training 12 times a week.
Wow.
And I was dieting, and it just ceased to become enjoyable and became a real chore. And I think that's something that I really want to get over today, is that the way you eat and the way you move your body, yes, it's important to focus on health and not aesthetics, but it's also really important that you enjoy what you do and you're not denying yourself or punishing yourself. And that is the key message really that I want to get across.
And I think that's the same with so many things, is taking things to the sort of the level that's beyond normal behavior, isn't it? That you get obsessed. So we hear so much about people becoming obsessed with whether it be weight or exercise and all of those things, and it's trying to bring everything back into balance again, really, isn't it?
Absolutely.
The one thing we'll move off your bodybuilding in a minute, but just one question that always I want to ask is that you see all those people with all their sort of their muscles like Arnie, etc. Are those muscles proper muscles that one builds, i.e. are they really strong muscles, or are they sort of superficial muscles? You know, they look kind of good if you're into that sort of look.
I mean, certainly anyone who is a competitive bodybuilder will lift really heavy weights. I mean,
Right.
I was bench pressing more than my body weight and squatting a lot more than my body weight. So yes, there is strength, but certainly when you only train with aesthetics in mind, you might be able to do a very specific exercise like a squat or a chest press or something. You might be able to do that and lift a lot of weight. But functionally, your body might not be that healthy because you're not focusing on things like fitness and agility and having strong ligaments and focusing on keeping your cartilage and joints healthy as well. So you might find that you actually get quite a lot of injuries because you're not doing holistic work. So, you know, something like Pilates and yoga are great if you're doing the ones that are sort of more power focused, because you're not just building strength, but you're focusing on joint health and making sure all of those ligaments are working properly. And if you're sort of eating a healthy diet, you're also taking some sort of exercise that benefits your heart, then it is a lot more holistic. I think, you know, very just strict weight training or bodybuilding can lead to you, yes, being strong, but functionally your body can be quite imbalanced.
Yeah, and I mean, I see that when I used to go to the gym, and I could never understand that these men, they would do certain exercises, so they would be obsessed either with their chest or with their thighs, and you think, well, can't you see that your legs are just not growing in proportion to your chest, and it looks a bit odd.
Yeah, so, they sort of look a bit like a give way sign because they've got tiny legs and huge shoulders and chest.
So, I mean, now we've had a chat sort of looking at, you know, where do we start? And please, you know, we will do our standard Q&A at the end of the session. So as we're going along, if you've got any questions for Claire, please do type them in and you can see them at the bottom. And we have had a number of questions already sent in earlier, so I know it's a very popular topic. So one of the first things is we're saying how to eat to retain muscle mass, and you know, and why is that so important as we get older?
So it's incredibly important, and it's one of those things we really don't think about. It's certainly not what we see in public health campaigns. Public health campaigns are all about reducing obesity, promoting sort of fitness and things, but we really don't see anything geared towards sort of staying healthy as we age. It's all about sort of trying to reverse the damage that we've done in our lives, quite sort of negative. One of the things that I find really incredible is that sort of from the ages of around 50 or so, for every year that we age, we lose between 1 and 3% of our muscle mass. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but it really adds up. Between sort of 50 and 70, we can lose about 40% of our muscle mass, but that equates to about 70% of our strength. And that's really vital. It's not just a case of you won't be able to bench press as much at the gym anymore. It's you will struggle to walk upstairs. You will struggle to get out of a chair unaided. You will need to hold on and sort of really push yourself up. The core strength, which is all sort of around the torso and abdominal regions, but also your sort of your bum muscles, these are absolutely critical for keeping your posture, for keeping your balance. So walking downstairs, your core is working to stop you falling. The more muscle strength that you lose, the less balance you have. And I see it in my mum. She's in her 80s and she has really pronounced muscle loss. And just sitting on a sofa and leaning forward to pick up a cup from a coffee table, she can't do without holding on to something because her core muscles have become so weak. I don't want to sound really doom and gloom, but over the years, we can lose such a significant amount of muscle that we do run the risk of more falls, for example, because our postural muscles are no longer as strong as they were. And those falls, because at the same time, particularly for ladies, we're losing bone mass, because post-menopause, with the drop in estrogen, our bones can become more spongy and porous and therefore more prone to breaking. When we have one of those falls, we're then more likely to break a bone, and because of the age, it becomes a longer process to recover from. So these falls can really affect your life.
Yeah, and I think it's like a catalogue of things, isn't it? So you then feel more vulnerable, and you know, you've got the mental health beside it. So so really, it's not about concentrating on muscles, it's understanding if you don't have muscles, this is what can happen. And, you know, and I think it's, people just think, well, it's just because I'm getting old, I'm losing muscle, which is true. But I think, you know, I'm sure that you'll go on, because I remember when we spoke before about, you were saying how actually this doesn't have to happen.
It really doesn't. It really doesn't. I mean, there's a lot of things that are just naturally phenomena that we encounter as we get older. You know, our joints will start to become more sore, and we do find that there's more inflammation, and there are, you know, we'll have more aches and pains. I read one of those memes the other day about saying 10-year-old me falls off a 12-foot set of monkey bars and goes, I'm fine. 50-year-old me tries to scoop ice cream that's too frozen out of the tub and dislocates their shoulder, and you kind of go, yeah, okay. This resonates. But absolutely, this is not inevitable. There are things that we can do, and they're quite simple things. Starting from sort of 40s and 50s, just make sure that each time you eat something, you include a protein food. Protein is the basis of our muscles, and by eating enough protein, we can help to maintain that muscle mass as we age. The problem, I suppose, I mean, it's not a problem, but the issue is that as we get older, it becomes harder to incorporate protein into our muscles and to maintain them. We actually potentially need more protein per day than the government guidelines recommend. So the guidelines recommend, they do it per kilo body weight, which is pretty unhelpful, but they recommend about 0.8 grams of protein per kilo body weight a day, whereas for over 50s, it's more like 1.2. So that's another 40%, another 50%. So we need half as much again on those protein recommendations, which is still not loads. So it's equivalent to about, depending on your weight, sort of 60 or 70 grams of protein a day. And to put that in context, a chicken breast or a can of tuna, depending on the size, will be about 20 to 30 grams of protein. So it is quite a lot that you need be thinking about getting, but obviously you're not finding protein just in meat and fish. It's a rich source, but you can, it's in bread, it's in grains, oats, for example. You know, you can find protein in a lot of places. But I think my advice would be, rather than sort of trying to calculate everything and track it and add things up, just incorporate a protein food into every meal that you have. And the area where I think a lot of people often miss out is breakfast, particularly if you have a piece of toast or you have breakfast cereal, for example. Yes, you've got a little bit of milk, and maybe part of your spread, if it's a nut butter or something, will have some protein in, but it's really quite small compared to our daily needs. So my advice would be, if you're having cereal or if you're having porridge or something, add some Greek yogurt to it, for example, or if you're having toast, maybe add a couple of scrambled eggs to it, or poached eggs or something like that if you've got time. But just something along those lines to add some protein. Have high protein snacks, so a small handful of nuts, a yogurt pot, for example, a little bit of cottage cheese on a couple of oat cakes, or something along those lines. Those can all sort of really help to add protein into your diet. And then when it comes to your meals, you know, look at a balance, because we're all trying, well, we're not all, but a lot of us are trying to eat less meat and fish and adult animal products. These are great sources of protein, but you can still look at things like pulses, soy products, chickpeas, tofu, nut-based products, lentils. what I tend to do, because I try to eat less meat, but I'm not going to eliminate it from my diet because I still think it's an important source of nutrients for me. I will pad out a one pot dish like a chili or a bolognese sauce, for example. I'll add lentils, or I'll add some cannellini beans or something like that. So it makes the meat go further. And I'm also adding plant-based protein. So there's a lot of things that you can do to increase your protein intake.
So just quickly to rewind, the reason that I think you said earlier about is that the protein, we need to take more protein in because our body can't, well, I can't remember what the words that you used for it, we can't convert it as much as we used to.
Yeah, we just become less efficient.
Right.
Because day to day you're losing muscle tissue, particularly if you exercise. You are using your muscles and you need to then repair those muscles, and so as we age, the body just becomes less efficient at doing that, whether it's sort of losses over time or whether it's repairing muscles that you've used during exercise. We're just less efficient, so we need a little bit more protein to effectively do the same thing that we did in our 30s.
And I think it's really important what you were saying, and we may talk a bit more about diet or maybe now, is that it's not thinking, oh, I need to eat a slab of red meat. That's absolutely not what you're advocating, because interestingly we had the Dr. Neil Binderman the other week talking about the ketogenic diet, which is obviously smaller amounts of protein, but it's interesting how he was talking about it. So it's trying to incorporate actually, I suppose, what works for you, but being very aware of how you take that protein. And I think the plant-based stuff is really that. I mean, I'd be interested to sort of investigate what sort of things other than lentils would you suggest?
So lentils, any kind of beans, so cannellini beans, butter beans, any sort of pulse-based foods, soy products, so tofu, edamame beans, and then things that are made out of pulses like hummus, tahini. You can use nut butters. Obviously they're quite high in fat, so you're not going to be getting huge amounts of protein from them, but you can also use kind of soy yogurts and those sort of examples. But you also find protein in a number of grains. So people talk about quinoa being a good source of protein. It's not the same as beans or eggs or meat, but it contains protein. And if you have a diet that is rich in lots of different types of grains, whether it's oats, quinoa, amaranth, some of those more ancient grains, all of those do still provide a source of protein, and it can be, particularly in a completely plant-based diet, it can contribute a really valuable source. So it is important to get your protein from lots of different sources, particularly if you are completely plant-based, because plant-based proteins don't tend to offer the complete range of protein types that our muscles need. There are one or two of the key, they're called amino acids. They're just the building blocks of these big protein molecules. But some of those essential amino acids that are really important for muscle development and repair are not present in every plant-based protein. So you have to combine lots of different plant-based sources of protein to get the right quality.
Right, and I think we're going to go on to talk about supplements, which would then sort of work. But the next thing we have on the list is about resistance training and how to make it work for you.
Yeah, so we don't all need to go and enter a bikini bodybuilding competition. I would advise against it. But the second, the flip side of getting enough protein is getting enough exercise. It's so important to keep using our muscles as we age. I read a paper the other day that actually says it's the physical activity that is the most pivotal. Protein is important, but moving our muscles is more important to healthy aging. And it's about how you do it. So cardiovascular exercise, whether that is walking or jogging or doing a class or dancing or cycling or whatever it is, that's very, very important for heart health, and for sort of maintaining a healthy body weight. But the resistance exercise is the thing that really helps to preserve our muscles. By using them, you know, it helps to preserve their strength and their functionality. So what type of resistance exercise can we do? And I think it's particularly important, if it's not something that you've tried before, to do something that's quite gentle, that's not sort of leaping into lifting really heavy weights or anything. And I mean, at the moment, the gyms are shut anyway. So, you know, what are the things that we can do at home or incorporate into just a healthy lifestyle? Really simple exercises that you can do, don't even need any weights. You know, you can literally just do some squats, some lunges, modified press ups. So you don't have to do like full press ups, you can do them from your knees. But there are lots of workouts online. The British Heart Foundation offers some really nice introductory resistance workouts. Some of them use resistance bands, for example, which you can buy quite cheaply on Amazon, and they're just, you know, you can use them to sort of do all sorts of things. You can put them around your calves and do squats and things with them. You can use them for you know, doing tricep, bicep exercises, all sorts of things. And there are workouts that you can do online, but you know, there are things that you can do that are literally just body weight exercises, just, you know, moving your own body. Even walking is going to, excuse me, help to develop some of those muscles.
And I think it's very much what I've, you know, I used to just do sort of running, and I now, when I'm in the gym, incorporate far more weights. And you know, once you've got, I mean, and I suppose that's going more to an extreme, because I know that when I go to the weight section, it's mainly men, and I think probably because I'm of a certain age, I now don't care. But when I would have been younger, I think I would have been intimidated, but now I'm not bothered. And once you start doing it, the amount of enjoyment that I get from doing it, and that actually is irrelevant whether I'm in the gym or not. And I think you sort of, it's the key to it, I would believe, is the fact is doing it constantly or continuously as a habit. And you don't, and being careful that you don't rip your muscles. So you start off gently and just build it up. I don't know, Rongan Chatterjee, who we think is a wonderful chap, is, you know, reading all his books. I remember reading one of his books where he said, you just put a few weights by your kettle, and every time you go to the kettle, just pull up the weights. And I've started doing that, and it has really made, you know, what I was thinking, well, you know, just doing 10 of those every now and then is not going to make a difference. Wow.
And that is exactly it. It's not about joining a gym and going to a really intimidating part of it, surrounded by guys in their 20s with, you know, supplements.
I quite enjoy it, to be honest now.
You know, you don't have to do it that way. There are things that you can do in your own home, because, you know, we're all strapped for time. It's hard to sort of work these things into our lifestyle, but absolutely, I do squats when I brush my teeth. So twice a day, I'm brushing my teeth and I'm just doing a few squats while I'm doing it. Same with the kettle, you know, lunge to one end of the kitchen and back, or, you know, do some squats, or if you've got some weights, or even just bags of sugar or something, maybe not sugar, something healthier, oats.
I think they always call, they always quote baked beans, don't they? Baked
beans. I mean, baked beans are quite light. I mean, they're sort of, what, 400 grams or so, half a kilo. So, but you know, it's fine. And you can do some little shoulder exercises, anything to just get your body moving. And I think when it's something that you do several times a day, like boil the kettle, or twice a day, like brush your teeth, you're actually then incorporating a reasonable amount of exercise in that dead time where you could be mindlessly eating a biscuit when you're waiting for the kettle to boil. But actually, if you're then mindfully exercising, it's actually quite good for your mental health too, to just focus on, you know, breathing with your exercise, you know, in when you go down into a squat, out as you come up. It's actually quite good for mental health as well, because it gets you to focus on that mindful moment rather than worrying about the 20 things that you've got to do when you get back upstairs. So there's lots of things that you can do in those sort of dead times to incorporate some resistance activity. If you've got one of those fitness balls, maybe sit and watch the TV while sort of trying to balance on it, you know, lift one foot up and balance, try and lift two of them up for a little moment. And, you know, that will help to build those core muscles. But things like Pilates and yoga, particularly the ones where they focus more on the sort of power movements, they are brilliant. You're not using any weights, but you're moving, you're lifting your own body, and you're holding your body in positions. These are great resistance exercises. It doesn't have to be like lifting really weights. Plenty of workouts online that are, you know, gentle body weight workouts for beginners that don't involve you having lots of equipment. You can do them at home. There are lots of different things that you can do to incorporate resistance activity into your lifestyle without having to do it in a very formal way, or you know, by joining a gym.
I think that's the key, isn't it? It's almost like downplaying it, so it becomes part of your life. You don't see it as being exercise. It's just part of what you do.
Definitely.
Exactly. So moving on then to, you know, supplements, fad or fact even. Yeah. So interesting enough, we are launching a support program at Talk Health, which is called My Vitamins and Minerals, and we're currently doing a survey. So if anybody hasn't taken it, please do, because we're looking to find out what people think about vitamins and minerals. And just very quickly, just interesting enough, lots of people take them, but they don't know why they're taking them. They know they should do, or they think they should do, but I think lots of people, you go into, you know, a popular vitamin shop on a high street, and you know, you just go and you think, oh my god, all these bottles, which ones do you choose? Do I really need them? Are they relevant to me? It is a minefield, isn't it?
It really is. And there are lots of claims that can legally be made on supplements that make you think you need them, when you absolutely don't, and they're not going to necessarily be conferring any benefits. It's very much dependent on the individual as to whether or not they need supplements. As a nutritionist, I would always say, focus on getting your diet right first. So the nutrients that come from food are the ones that nourish us the best, because they're the best absorbed, and they are delivered with lots of other nutrients and benefits too. So if we're eating eggs, for example, we're not just getting protein, we're getting a huge range of vitamins and minerals, we're getting some healthy fats, they taste nice, we get pleasure from eating them. Food is not just fuel, it's you know, it's a real balance. So I absolutely advocate the food first approach. Supplements can add benefits to an already balanced diet, in a very, very small number of occasions. So, I mean, I think, so let's take a protein supplement, for example, whether it's based on whey powder or soy powder, or there's lots of sort of pea proteins and plant-based proteins out there. You know, they're all effectively delivering a source of protein. They can be useful from a convenience perspective. So if you're struggling to eat enough protein first thing in the morning because you're on the go, you're rushing out of the door and you've just got to chuck a piece of toast down you don't have time to make eggs or whatever, or eat a yogurt, then a protein supplement can be helpful at this point, just to give you a boost. It doesn't mean it's necessary, it's convenience. The only time I really recommend supplements beyond vitamin D, which in this country, because we're so far north, we don't get enough sunlight in the winter months. So vitamin D, which is primarily made in the skin when the sun acts on it. Vitamin D is something we should all be taking, probably year round, if I'm honest, 10 micrograms a day, year round, but certainly in the winter months. Beyond that, I only really recommend supplements if there's a real need for them. So if somebody is deficient, for example, you see it more in people on unplanned plant-based diets, where they're not necessarily eating a lot of balanced foods, and they can sort of get quite a limited diet. You know, in those cases, you might see vitamin B12 is low, iron might be low because that's found mainly in animal products, as is B12. Calcium might be low if someone's not replacing milk products with fortified products. So there are certain areas, and as we age, we again become less efficient at absorbing certain nutrients, and you see from National Dietary Survey data in the UK that there's a low intake of certain nutrients in over 50. So magnesium, which is really important for bone maintenance, tends to be a little bit low. Some of the B vitamins, which are important in heart health, and cognitive health, for example, again, can be quite low. So it's not that we need supplements per se, it's just that we need to sort of eat a more balanced diet.
Yeah, and then I suppose, and particular times in our lives, if we've been unwell, and looking how we can quickly boost our immune system, or if we've started going through the menopause, or giving up, all of those sorts of things. But it sort of goes, I mean, I know we're talking and focusing on muscle mass, but it just goes to show that everything is very complex, isn't it? How it all knits together, really. And the other thing, the last sort of point that we have before we'll move on to some Q&As is and I know this from my own stuff, is how important it is to actually rest your muscles as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to rest your whole body from a sort of physiological and mental point of view. But yeah, if you're exercising your muscles every day and not having a rest day, you can get to a point where your body just calls time and goes, you know, this is enough now. You run the risk of injuries. You can, you know, if you do get really into exercise, you can actually develop something called relative energy deficiency in sports, where you might look healthy, but you're actually not fueling your body enough to cover all of the exercise that you're doing. So you're running the risk of injury, but you can actually affect your hormones, because your body thinks it's almost sort of like you're starving a little bit if you're over exercising, and you can sort of then see drops in performance. You'll feel very tired, very washed out. Your sleep patterns will be affected. So it's very, very important to have rest days. And I would say if you're doing a lot of resistance training, don't train the same body parts day after day. You know, try to have a day off, or if you're training each day, then one day do a leg focused workout, and the next day do an upper body focused workout where you're working sort of arms and chest and back, and then back to legs. But try to have a day in between where you do something gentle, like go for a walk, or do some yoga, or something a bit different from lifting weights. We should aim to try and lift not weights, but do some resistance training 3 times a week if possible.
Definitely. Right, I was going to have a look at some of the questions, so now I have to put on my glasses. Right. Oh, actually, this lady said that she's actually mentioned you on Instagram, so it may be one of the questions you have, but I'll read it out here.
Yeah.
What small changes can I make to my current exercise plan of walking, yoga, and daily 20,000 steps?
Wow.
That's a lot, to build muscle mass.
Yeah, yes, she did message me on my Instagram. So, I mean, what you're doing already is fantastic. I would maybe look at some of the yoga that you're doing, and maybe try some of the different yoga types. So you've got some of the sort of gentle yogas, but then there's more of the power yogas where you're doing sort of a lot more body weight movements, where you're holding your body weight, maybe, you know, sort of on your hands and feet, and you know, some of the ones where you do like really quite powerful movements that can help. A little bit of Pilates, maybe, just to change things up a bit. That again focuses on some body weight exercises. Or like we said earlier, you know, just incorporating some, you know, squats and arm curls and shoulder presses and stuff, just while you're, you know, waiting for the vegetables to boil or the kettle to boil, or, you know, doing a few squats while you're brushing your teeth, those kind of things. Or resistance band workouts, you know, you can do really quite quick ones, where you just literally have a few bands that you sort of put around your legs, and you can do like little sideways sort of crab walks across the kitchen, or do squats with them around your calf muscles and things like that. Like I said, British Heart Foundation have got some quite nice introductory resistance band workouts on their website.
Great. Are muscles that are weak more likely, this is a good one, are muscles that are weak more likely to lose muscle mass sooner than healthy muscles? I'm prone to shoulder and neck problems after an injury 20 years ago.
I mean, first up, I'm not a physiologist, so I'm sort of answering this as someone who's sort of done personal training, but as in I am a personal trainer, but I'm not an expert in this area. I think it's two things. It's about muscle mass and muscle strength. So the more muscle mass that you're starting with, and the greater muscle strength, which isn't always equivalent. You can have strong but small muscles, and you can have big but not particularly strong muscles. So I think if you're starting out with weaker or reduced size muscles, functionally you're starting from a lower point, which is probably why you see less of an effect in men than women, because men tend to have a higher muscle mass than women do. So you will probably see the effects sooner on loss of muscle mass in women, because we're starting with less. But obviously if there are injuries, then I would advise that you see a professional, a physiotherapist, or someone who can sort of try and help you work around those injuries to focus on building up some functional strength. And then, you know, working from there. I can't sort of give advice to individuals, but I would say speak to a professional and try and focus on doing some strength work in those areas under the direction of someone who sort of knows your body well.
And actually that's the point to make, isn't it, really? It's not about just how heavy you lift something, or that it's the manner in which you lift. Absolutely. And that you focus on the muscle that you know you're meant to be focusing on, as opposed to just lifting something, because otherwise it could be a complete waste of time.
It can be a catastrophe. The number of people I've seen in the gym doing things. There was this guy, I mean, God love him. He was a lovely guy. I think he went more for a chat than anything else. But you'd see him and he would be doing exercises that were using every muscle but the one he should be using because he'd be sort of throwing himself around with gusto. But absolutely, you are much better off lifting less with the right technique and really focusing that mind-muscle connection. So, for example, when you're doing squats, really focusing on driving up through your heels. I'm pointing at my heels, you can't see me, but driving up through your heels, really focusing that movement into the bottom muscles. So you're sort of pushing upwards, holding your core tight, particularly those tummy muscles right at the bottom that sort of go between our hips. Across the abdomen, really sort of keeping your posture and focusing that movement so that it's a really structured movement where you're focusing the mind on the parts of the muscles that are working, and really keeping that technique and that good posture, keeping that neutral spine, and really focusing, not lifting any weights at all. You see so many people, I mean usually guys, but who are loading the weights up and then barely moving because they're too heavy. You are far better off doing it with less weight, leave your ego at the door, lift less heavy weights but with good technique and that mind muscle connection. Really think about the muscles that are working.
Yeah, and I think that what we must stress is actually we're not really advocating, when we're talking about weightlifting and all those, we're not talking about work in the gym. We're talking about work, but in your kitchen where you're waiting for the kettle to boil.
Absolutely.
And I think it is, you know, you make a really valid point. It is really good. So you don't have to go and have an instructor tell you, because there is so much out there on the internet. Just have a look at a recommended, and you know, it's the British Heart Foundation have it, which is, if you couldn't get a better recommendation, look at how they do their exercises. And, you know, and it's about slowly and doing it correctly, and that's how you get the benefit.
You know, you see, and I think it is so important to stress that you want a registered professional rather than someone who's got 100,000 followers on YouTube. Just 100,000 is probably not even very much, but yeah, usually the people who are really good at what they do don't tend to have a lot of followers because they're doing it properly, and they don't, you know, they're not 16 with a bottom sort of this size and a waist that size. But you know, it's really important to go for a registered professional when it comes to exercise technique, and yes, do it slowly. I think you see a lot of these classes where they're trying to, particularly CrossFit, where they're just trying to do as many of something as possible. And I look at the technique, and particularly CrossFit, because you're lifting heavy weights and you're doing complex movements like a sort of clean and press movement, and you see people trying to do sort of 20 or 30 in a minute, and I'm just going, oh my goodness me, I mean, I'd be doing like 8 in a minute, really focusing on the appropriate technique, because that's how you get injuries. And then if you're injured, you know, you might not be exercising for 6 months because you've really hurt yourself.
Absolutely. And also, there's never a better time to start doing small amounts just to get on with it, isn't it? Really?
Absolutely.
You don't need to have those leggings or whatever it is. You don't need to go to a class. You can do it at home. But the key thing is to start doing it gently and then integrate it into a routine. Right, couple more questions. I'm 58 years old and have a long-term severe back injury, which means I'm not very mobile. I also started the menopause about 3 years ago. My question is, what is the best way to retain as much muscle mass as possible, and are there any particular supplements or vitamins, etc., might help? Well, I think that you've kind of answered some of those questions already.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely talk to a decent physiotherapist for advice on the kind of exercises that you can do to work around the mobility, because there are things that you can do, and you know, you can actually get specialist personal trainers as well who will focus on, you know, working around these kind of mobility issues. So certainly there are still resistance exercises that you can do, but I would recommend a professional to advise on what. But again, just making sure that you're getting enough protein in your diet. So eat a source of protein at each meal, and 1 or 2 high protein snacks each day. So some of the examples, you know, like yogurt, whether that's a soy or dairy yogurt, nuts, pulses, meat, fish, eggs. Eggs are things that you can add to breakfast, dollop of Greek yogurt on some porridge, for example, some of those kind of things. If you are struggling to eat enough protein, then a supplement of a sort, whether it's a powder, a whey powder, or a soy or other plant-based powder, can certainly help give you a bit of a boost, particularly at breakfast. In terms of other areas of the diet to think about, just thinking about sort of general health post-menopause, you need to focus on bone health as well, and helpfully what's good for muscles is also good for bones. So again, a good source of protein, but watching out for calcium, so dairy products, green vegetables, any sort of canned fish that has edible bones is a brilliant source of calcium. So, you know, like sardines and mackerel, which is often not what a lot of people want to eat, but they have got some really nice heart healthy omega-3s in as well. Making sure that you're getting your vitamin D supplements, which is also going to have benefits for the immune system as well. So, I mean, we should all be taking vitamin D at the moment. And yeah, just making sure you're getting omega-3s as well. I mean, you may want to take a fish oil supplement that contains DHA and EPA if you don't eat a lot of oily fish. They're quite heart healthy, possibly might also help to protect your cognitive health as you age post-menopause. So those are some of the key nutrients to look out for.
Right. Okay, and I'm just wary of the time. One last question. It's from a lady. I'm 61 and started the menopause about the age of 51. Hopefully all behind me. I think so many people say that, but for so many, it's not always there.
No.
having always been fit and I eat a Mediterranean diet, my muscle mass is something I do worry about. I do resistance training 3 times a week and wondered if this is enough. I'm not sure how to tell if what I'm doing is helping me. The training I do does cover the whole body and feels really good, so I hope it's enough.
Absolutely. I mean, she sounds like the model.
Yes.
The model
Mediterranean
person.
diet 3
Yeah,
times a week.
absolutely. I mean, it's like tick, 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 tick. No, that sounds absolutely brilliant. I mean, you know, I think a way to sort of know whether it's helping you is, are you still able to do the things that you were doing, you know, 5-10 years ago, and feeling like you are still able to sort of pick up the shopping, walk up the stairs, get out of a chair, you know, do the things you've always done. If you are, then it's working, because a lot of people sort of in that 10-year gap between sort of starting the menopause and now will see significant loss of muscle mass.
Okay, well, I mean, I think for me, the thing that really gives me hope is the fact is aging just doesn't mean that you have to lose muscle mass. You can work at it and you can retain it, you can keep it. And in fact, if you haven't done much before your 40s, don't give up hope, because you can build it as you get older.
And actually, if you're new to training and you start training and eating a little bit more protein, you'll see some really rapid benefits. I mean, it's incredible in newbies. I sort of look at them and go, oh, that was me like 20 years ago. And, you know, you can see some really big benefits, and they can be quite rapid. You know, even in people in their 70s and 80s, they've done some studies where they've shown people literally just do a leg extension machine in the gym, and eat a little bit more protein, and the difference in that they do like a CT scan of the muscle in the leg, and you see it go from sort of this kind of size to that kind of size. You know, it really changes, and that's sort of over 12 weeks. You really can see massive benefits, even if you are starting, you know, in quite advanced stage. So yeah, it's never too late.
Well, thank you very much, Claire. And just a quick note, Claire is our resident nutritionist at the moment, so we've got a couple of months of Claire answering all your questions in our forum. So please go and post any questions you want, and Claire will be able to advise you. So yeah, thank you so much, Claire. And I'm going to go do some weights now by the kettle. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Thanks very much. Bye.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.